Good evening, everyone. It is August, excuse me. It is Monday, August 7th, time for the PM edition of Campus to Canton's C2-A-Days. We'll be giving news and notes from around the country, primarily Power 5 tonight. A lot of interviews with coordinators, position coaches, and players. But tomorrow morning, because of course we do this twice a day, we'll have plenty to discuss at the group of five level, as well as a wide range of teams that are taking the field this evening, on the field as we speak. And sure, there will be plenty of news items to discuss after those teams wrap up practice on Monday evening. So a couple of notes to start with, something that we missed perhaps on our AM edition this Monday at Washington. Roman Tomashov of Inside the Huskies noted that Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback and Heisman Trophy candidate, was held out of practice on Sunday. However, an interview with head coach Kalen DeBoer wanted to emphasize that there is no need to panic. Mentioned that, this is quoting DeBoer now, he threw the heck out of it the first three practices. It just seemed like a really good time to give him a rest. I think the timing of it allowed us to really take advantage of getting Austin Mack some reps because we never really have seen him in a team setting, and we have to figure out who our number three quarterback is. So according to Tomashov, Mack, quote, took full advantage of that opportunity. Nevertheless, it was reportedly a limited day for the offense. Most of the big play and long touchdown, the only one noted in the piece, came from Dylan Morris, who connected with Jalen McMillan on a 55-yard score. But again, to emphasize that it was just precautionary for Michael Penix and a chance to perhaps give him a little bit of a rest after getting fall camp started. This is DeBoer, quote again, if Mike had to play today, he'd play. It was a matter of keeping him fresh, keeping him sharp. So nothing there to worry about, but an opportunity for, I know there are certainly some folks at Campus to Canton who are very, very high on Austin Mack. So good to hear a report that he played well in the extended opportunity with Michael Penix limited on Sunday. At Auburn, there were interviews with both coordinators on Monday, and Matt Cohen of AL.com ran down a pretty extensive piece in which he discussed the running back situation. We've talked a lot about it already this fall camp. I'm sure we will continue to. But in that piece, and going off of some of the news that Philip Montgomery shared, some of the quotes that he had in this meeting with the media on Monday, Montgomery used the quote by committee term. So said that is a possibility, that Jarquez Hunter, who has yet to see the field in preseason practice, but as we mentioned earlier today, is reportedly close to returning. There was no discussion of Hunter's availability during the press conference on Monday, but mentioning that, could use a committee. Perhaps Hunter will be part of that. Perhaps a true freshman who was highlighted by Montgomery, Jeremiah Cobb, who has impressed coaches early in spring camp. Sounds like he might have an opportunity to get some carries, especially if Hunter is limited or potentially suspended for a period of time during the season. But then, of course, we've heard some very good things about Damari Alston, who was the first running back to see snaps at the Thursday practice last week. And according to this piece, according to Cohen, head coach Hugh Freeze has already termed Alston a team leader. So whether or not Hunter is available. Brian Battie, who is experienced, transfer from USF. There had been some reports that he was still limited from a foot injury. Sounds like, according to Philip Montgomery, that perhaps those nicks and bruises are behind him. A quote here says, "I thought Brian had some good runs. Damari had some good runs. I mean, all those guys are contributing, and I feel good about where we're headed right now." So continuing, Nathan King of Auburn Undercover had a few notes on other players picked up in the conversation with Montgomery. Holden Grenier, Montgomery said, quote, "He's a natural leader. The ball just zips off his hands and he stands in the pocket." We mentioned that Peyton Thorne has been getting the number one reps with Grenier. My apologies for having the pronunciation correct. Getting those number 2 reps. And then Robbie Ashford currently, last we've heard, is number 3 in the pecking order. There was also a note on wide receiver transfer Caleb Burton. Montgomery said, quote, "He has the ability to play inside out, really fluid, good route runner, stepped out on the field and did some really good things." We've heard quite a bit of buzz, it sounds like, behind the scenes about Burton. Looks like he's going to have an opportunity to emerge and probably see some significant playing time. Also said that Jair Shorter, the big play transfer from North Texas, is showing improvement every day. And then finally, Montgomery mentioned about Robbie Ashford, quote, "He's throwing the ball a lot better this fall camp. His biggest progression has been throwing." So even though Ashford, it sounds like, still has some work to do to move up the depth chart, still some positive notes on improvements that he is making from Philip Montgomery, the new Auburn offensive coordinator. At Tennessee, report from Patrick Brown of Vols 247. The wide receiver group there in Knoxville was a little bit shorthanded Monday morning. Both Tamarian McDonald and Jordan Thomas reportedly stayed inside working with a training staffer. They did not see Wesley Walker out during drills. So in addition to wide receiver, the secondary was limited as well, the safety group in particular. But with Brew McCoy, Squirrel White, and Nathan Leacock all inside, ran inside after the team headed outdoors for practice. Apparently, Brew McCoy broke the team down prior to the individual work, between the stretching period and individual work, but that there were just 8 scholarship wideouts available for practice. So some walk-ons had an opportunity to mix into the second team behind. And this is maybe the more important piece. The top trio today, again, a limited group, but Ramel Keaton, Dante Thornton Jr., and Chaz Nimrod got the primary reps with the top offensive unit. Also a note, offensive lineman center Cooper Mays reportedly was not seen during those drills where the media was present. At Michigan State, some discussions with Ephraim Reed, the running backs coach. Chris Solari had a nice breakdown, rundown on Twitter. Solari, of course, of the Detroit Free Press, mentioned, Ephraim Reed mentioned that there have been a lot of teams who've had success rotating 3 or 4 running backs, and that he has had discussions with his position group on that topic because, unsurprisingly, just about everybody wants to be a 20 or 30 carry player. Nevertheless, sounds like, again, committee is sort of the word of the day. And at Michigan State, that committee potentially, we'll see, could involve freshman running back Jalen Barberin. According to Reed, quote, "He's one of the fastest, if not the fastest guy in the Big Ten." Says that the game needs to slow down. Needs to, of course, adjust to the college level. But I personally am a sucker for speed. So when I hear that somebody is the fastest player on the team, maybe the fastest player in the conference, I certainly take note. There was also an interview with offensive coordinator Jay Johnson. Solari says that quarterback Caden Hauser, who is, of course, in the mix with Noah Kim to start at quarterback, has, quote, freakish arm talent. That was disputed in the Campus to Canton Slack after this quote came across, but still, the offensive coordinator saying that Hauser has a very strong arm, can also use his feet, and it according to Solari and the analysis that he put forth, it says sounds like the difference between him and Kim right now is experience in the system. At Oklahoma, Tom Green of Sooners Illustrated noted that running back Gavin Sawchuk was not present during the open portion of practice. Said that the rotation consisted of Javante Barnes, Marcus Major, Tawi Walker, and Caleb Hicks, among others. Nevertheless, later in practice, apparently Sawchuk reemerged. George Stoya of Sooner Scoop said that Sawchuk was back at practice for a media portion. Just saw him walk off the field, and Jeff Levy, the offensive coordinator, says he practiced. Maybe he just missed some of the beginning. He definitely missed some of the individual drills, according to Stoya, who tweeted that. There was a piece by Green and Sooner Illustrated that discussed Barnes and his injury and his recovery from injury, which has been described as a, quote, dead bone near his big toe. Had apparently had some circulation issues and caused some difficulty moving the toe. And then ultimately that bone was removed. So Barnes apparently was recovered from that surgery. The plan all along was to play through it as a true freshman, according to Green's piece, and then have the offseason surgery, miss some time in the spring, and is back and ready to compete for carries, it sounds. At Kansas, a report from Jordan Guskey of the Topeka Capital Journal mentioned that Jalen Daniels was at practice today, but did not take any reps due to back tightness. So not necessarily good news, but hopefully a situation, a report of back tightness, or if Lance Leopold specifically said back tightness, a little bit different than the Michael Penix situation, but we are, of course, early in camp, about 3 weeks until Kansas will kick off their season. So hopefully this was just precautionary, and we'll see Jalen Daniels back out soon. We, of course, will look for additional information on that. And Guskey also had a fun piece in the Capital Journal about offensive coordinator Andy Koltonicki and the role that his players play in installing new plays. Kind of a fun piece that describes, how certain position groups or certain players will come in with an idea. Hey, coach, let's try this out, and it won't just do anything, won't take any suggestion, but if it's a good idea, they'll try to flesh it out and see if it's something that can work. So according to Koltonicki from the piece, he says, quote, give them a little ownership on what we're doing too, right? On offense, that's what we should be doing, right? Be creative and stressful. And some 20-year-old guy thinking of something like, that's a pretty good idea. As long as you can put your guard down as an adult and be like, okay, young man, that is a good idea, right? Which is hard for a lot of us to do. But, I know following, some coaching circles, I personally pay attention to the high school coaching level and sort of what coaches are talking about. This is the offense that's got me most excited. This is the one I want to study in the off season. There are plenty of companies out there that provide videos and full offensive breakdowns, books, things like that. The Kansas offense is right now toward the very top of the list of hottest um, offensive systems that has coaches at that level excited. So they of course have done some very interesting things. Jason Bean, the backup quarterback, who of course got extra reps today. It's fun to see he and Daniels on the field at the same time. Some unique things that they do, but also that particular offense and Koltonecki specifically, the way that he draws up plays and utilizes players, expect that to spread. That is something that is sure to go across the college football world, continue to spread across the college football world, because a lot of people are talking about it at the high school level, and things tend to go up and down the ladder when a system is getting coaches excited. At Illinois, Jeremy Werner of the Illini Inquirer made note of the wide receiver pecking order. Said it was hard to get a real grip on the order. It did look like Isaiah Williams was getting more reps at outside receiver. While we still expect him to be prominently featured in the slot, Bielema mentioned at Big Ten Media Days a desire for Williams to play more downfield. This looks like it would unlock that. In those reps, Hank Beatty moved up to the top slot option. There were in 3 wide receiver sets, according to Werner and Joey. I'm not sure Joey's last name. My apologies. Who apparently was on hand for practice. It was Casey Washington, Isaiah Williams, and Pat Bryant in the first group, and then Malik Elzy, who I've read a couple of times, is apparently really, really impressing as a true freshman in fall camp. He, Hank Beatty, and Sean Miller were in the second group in a particular drill. At Virginia, Michael Curran of Wahoo's 247 had a piece on Kobe Pace, the transfer running back from Clemson. Sean Elliott, the head coach there, of course, not Sean Elliott, Tony Elliott, my apologies, coached Pace at Clemson, says in this piece, he was kind of the guy, and then he got hurt. When you look at that situation, he's leaving. Maybe you had 3 starting caliber backs in that room, and so it's hard to find enough reps for 3 guys of that caliber. And so he does have a complete skill set. It sounds like not only Elliott is excited about Pace, but his teammates, including his competition for carries in the backfield, Paris Jones, who was the starter last year for Virginia, had high praise for Pace. Said he has a quote electrifying speed, elusiveness, power. Kobe can do it all, man. He's a very, very talented guy. So Pace, it sounds like, has been competing so far in fall camp for that top spot on the depth chart. It would not surprise me if he's able to slide past Paris Jones and get the bulk of those carries. But just an item of note there that a former coach of his, a relationship leads to transfer. They reconnect. Obviously understands his skill set, his strengths, and potentially, could be the type of player that Virginia looks to build its offense around. I have noted or seen in multiple places, it's not a shock, but Tony Muskett, the transfer from Monmouth at the FCS level, sounds like it's taking just about every first team rep at quarterback for Virginia this year. At Missouri, Gerard Hamilton of Power Mizzou, the Missouri site on the Rivals Network, had a piece featuring Theo Weiss, the transfer from Oklahoma. Had a few interesting quotes. Sounded like Weiss is a fun guy to talk to. Talks about the role that he's got currently, what he's practicing the situation that he's in the Missouri offense, how it's not actually very similar to what he was doing at Oklahoma. Says, quote, "But I'm excited. It's way better. I'm able to play on both sides, outside or inside, and run every route on the route tree, pretty much everything. It's a night and day thing." We also discussed his relationship with Luther Burden, mentioned that he thought that he was a reason why Burden at one point was committed to Oklahoma. But then, talking about playing on the same field, he says, "But I know when I'm on the field with Luther, I can't get double teamed. So that's definitely a plus. Luther is a great athlete, and I'm trying to help him get to the next level every day. He's probably the second best receiver I've played with. I played with CeeDee Lamb." So, Luther Burden, the sky is the limit for him. I know a lot of us are very excited to see how he will be featured this year in Missouri's offense. But according to Theo Weiss, who of course played with CeeDee Lamb, Burden not quite to Lamb's level just yet. But wanted to follow up something I mentioned in the AM edition. Continue to get a lot of great write-ups from Louisville Report and Matthew McGavich. Mentioned that we haven't seen very many notes about Jamari Thrash, and there were a couple of other receivers that have gotten more mention, Chris Ball and Keon Coleman specifically. But McGavich did note that the Jack Plummer to Jamari Thrash connection continues to get better with each passing day, as the duo connected on a beautiful deep inside post early in an 11-on-11 segment. I believe that was Monday, was today's practice. A quick note that from the weekend missed earlier, Marcus Washington, who we mentioned last week, was dealing with a hand injury, had a brace or cast on his hand last week and missed some time at practice. Matt Rule was quoted at the weekend Nebraska Football Fan Day saying that Washington is ready and will be full go on Monday. So haven't heard a follow-up just yet, but sounds like the expectation was that Washington will be back at practice and full speed for Monday's practice. Quick note on Colorado. There was an interview with Gary Harrell, the running backs coach there, on Monday. He noted that Alton McCaskill, who's of course recovering from a knee injury that sidelined him at Houston all of last year, says that he is about a week away from taking contact there in camp. So McCaskill, most folks expect to be the top ball carrier there. Being limited in spring practice might impact that a little bit. Could create some space for Kavasier Smoke, the former Kentucky running back, talented true freshman Dylan Edwards, who was on campus during spring practice, and two names maybe to file away. Former walk-on Anthony Hankerson is continuing apparently to get a lot of praise from head coach Deion Sanders, but also one of Sanders's former players at Jackson State recently committed to Colorado, Savion Wilkerson, who was a 1,000-yard rusher at the FCS level. Would expect that he's going to have an opportunity to get a few carries and touches as well. So there's plenty of depth, perhaps behind McCaskill. Could argue that McCaskill is certainly the most talented, has the highest upside, but if he is still, a little bit of ways, or at least a week away from practicing full speed and taking contact, sounds like perhaps he might not get a very heavy workload right away, especially with guys like Smoke and Wilkerson and the rest of that unit on hand. Colorado could ease McCaskill into the rotation before we would mostly expect he would take over and become the primary ball carrier as the season progresses. Final note, at Arizona State, for the second straight day, a potential Sun Devil starter on defense has been dismissed from the team. Tennessee transfer linebacker Jawan Mitchell, who started his career at Texas, will be looking for another program. He was apparently involved in an incident during Friday's practice that led to his dismissal on Saturday. That is, of course, was tweeted out by Devil's Digest. And then I just realized that I missed something earlier on my sheet here. We've got, another 60 or so lines of notes, and I skipped from LSU. Apparently, there was a fight at practice on Monday. That was according to a report from Zach Nagy of LSU Country, as well as others. It involved some pretty high-profile players, including arguably the best defensive player in college football, linebacker Harold Perkins. Wide receivers Kyron Lacey and Malik Neighbors were also involved. Both of those wideouts were sent to the locker room, according to Nagy, and Perkins sat out the final 4 periods of the day. Sounds like starting safety Major Burns and defensive back Denver Harris were also reportedly involved. So that's a lot of starters, contributors, getting after one another, and certainly don't know the details, don't know what led to it, but bit of a scuffle at LSU practice today, reportedly. As far as the pecking order, the running back group, which we've mentioned a few times, Logan Diggs, according to Nagy, continues to take first team reps during 11-on-11 live periods. But Josh Williams is rotating in, as well as Armani Goodwin, with that first team offense. And then J.K. Johnson, who's expected to start at cornerback, was seen on a scooter today and had his leg completely wrapped, according to a tweet from Shea Dixon of Bengal Tiger on 3. So don't know yet the details of that. Certainly scooter leg wrap doesn't sound like it's just a one-day thing, but we will have to see. Potentially a one-day thing. Brian Thomas Jr. apparently is battling a minor injury, according to Nagy, continuing his work at LSU Country. Thomas was seen on the field later in the practice, apparently, and then Greg Brooks, who is expected to compete for a starting job in the secondary. He left practice with the medical staff today, did not return to practice. So LSU, some self-inflicted wounds potentially impacting some players. We'll see how they respond there, but also some, just regular old injuries that tend to happen in fall camp. Hopefully guys like Thomas Brooks and Johnson will be back, but of course, we will see what we can find on details, how long they may be out, miss practice, or of course, if they're expected to miss some time as we inch closer to the season, which week 0 kicks off in now, I believe, 19 days. So we will be back in the morning, August 8th a.m. edition. Lots of Group of 5 conference team notes, as well as a roundup of information that we get overnight from those teams who are practicing this evening. So check us out at campustocanton.com. We would love to have your support there. Check out our new C2C Winning Edge package, where you can see all of this information that we go through in this show is also reflected in our team profiles, our individual team pages for all 133 teams. Those go out to our C2C Winning Edge members to see projected depth charts, projected point spreads, team power rankings, coach ratings, stats, all kinds of information. So please do check us out if you like this information here and would like to see it at your fingertips. And again, we will be back tomorrow morning with another edition of C2-A-Days, campustocanton.com.